So one of my favorite memories when I was just starting cycling, so in Central Park, you do laps around Central Park as races, and the men and the women race at the same time, but they stagger at the starts, and so the men race and then the women go off. And so they're usually at opposite sides of the park. It's like a 6-mile loop. And so I was in this women's race. This was right after I started cycling, and I wasn't yet introduced to some of the sexism that exists in the sport and the tradition in European racing and all over. And I was working in finance, which is like a very, female empowerment, New York City kind of job. And so it was 6 laps in our race, and I attacked the group after the first lap. And so I was basically doing 5 laps solo until the finish. And about 2 or 3 laps into it, I caught up to the men's peloton. And the way it works in Central Park is every time the men catch up to the women, the women have to go to the side of the road, and then the men pass, and then we can resume our race. But we always have our race paused because of the men. And so I caught up to the men, and I was going to be sitting in the back of their peloton, and I was like, told the moto, I was like, you need to have them move. I need to go by. And he was like, no, like the men don't move for you're alone. Like, I don't know what to do. And I was like, if I were a man, you would let them move. You would make them move. And so then he was like really nervous. He didn't know what to do. And so finally he pulled the men's race over to the side and let me go through. And that was like a really memorable moment for me, because it was the first time I'd experienced like some subtleties of sexism in the sport, where they would make way for the men's peloton, but they wouldn't for a woman. But then also at the time, it like didn't even faze me. I was like, of course this is how it should be. And I think being exposed to more traditional sentiments of sexism in the sport, there's times when I'm like, oh, I really want to fight this, but is this the fight to fight? And I have to like pause at it a bit more. But I loved kind of that completely naive and innocent approach that I took to that moment, which was, I see something that's totally not okay, and I'm not even going to ask permission. I'm just going to tell them how it needs to be. But yeah, that was a really interesting experience for me early on, and I think it influenced the way that I approach men and women cycling and the differences between them in my experiences now. Like I see it as just totally unacceptable. I don't think about it as, oh, but this is how it's always been. We're making progress. I'm like, no, this is not okay. Like there is no like long-term trajectory. We need to make change now.